Hey guys, what's up? Primal here, and finally, welcome to my 500 subscriber special. And counting. I am so sorry this project has taken so long. I've just had a lot going on ever since I went back to school in these current conditions. I'm finally done, and I finally got a new job, thank God. So, um, yeah, things are finally starting to look up a little bit, and I also had plenty of other projects I wanted to try and do, but I wanted to get this one out of the way first, especially since I've been in the milestone for quite a while, and I'm way past it, like way over the mark, and I'm working on getting the next one real soon. I'm getting close to 600. I mean, throughout these past couple of months, ever since spring break ended, I've been getting like 10 subscribers a day, and I just wanted to say thank you all so much for the support you've given me, despite me not doing this just yet. Thank you for carrying me this far over these past few weeks, and continuing to support me despite my lack of actual content like this. Again, I am really sorry it took so long. Just a lot's been going on, and also I got a new phone with a new camera, and yeah, a lot has changed within these past couple of weeks for me, so yeah, I'll be more than happy to go into specifics in a vlog hopefully soon. But let's get right down to business with this video, shall we? So it took me a little bit to think on what I should actually do for a 500 subscriber special, because I mean, I never really get too many requests, and I mean, I have other ideas as well, but I'm not really sure they're actually worthy of such a grand milestone. So it took me a little bit to think, but I decided to um do something regarding like the whole base content of my channel. And since this is a new decade and all, and there have been other projects like this, I figured why not? So this will not be a top 10, it'll be a top 20, and this is my top 20 video games of all time that I've played. It features original stuff, not based off of anything else, like original ideas, not video game versions of movies or whatever, because I used to play a lot of that back in the day. Those were actually some of my first video games, and so yeah, there won't really be any actual video game that I've played that I like that is based off of something else on this list, unless it's like an honorable mention or part of, the intro. So, yeah, what you just watched. Anyway, um so yeah, these are pretty much the top 20 games I've played throughout my time with video games, and I decided to do them in a chronological order, and I'm not ranking them necessarily. I'm just talking about 20 different video games that have been my favorite of all time throughout my years. So, with that said out of the way, let's get right into it. Oh, also note that my commentary will be a little bit unscripted. I heard it makes it sound more natural, more organic. I think that's what people have described to me in the past, so I decided to try and do that. Plus, I've been working on this for weeks, and yeah. So, with that said out of the way, let's get into it, shall we? So starting off my top 20 list, we got the very game that was pretty much my whole childhood, Spyro the Dragon. Spyro's not only one of the first original games I've ever played, it's probably the one that stuck with me the most. A tiny purple dragon with a big heart who's been on some big adventures over the years. I think this was probably the very first game that I played that wasn't really based off of something else, because most of the games I played back in my early childhood were based off of other stuff like Harry Potter or Bionicle, etc. Those were pretty much my go-to games, like, in my early days of playing. So, I never really made it too far into the original games just because I did not really understand the actual goal and I had some difficulty. I was very young and it took me a lot of time and practice to get better and actually complete them. So yeah, I never really beat the original Spyro games till like my teens or pre-teens. And that was like about the time I was actually starting to get back into Spyro and learn more about his entire franchise. I never even heard of the second game, which was Ripto's Rage, and is also now my personal favorite out of the whole franchise. Until like 2009, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, that would be like 5 to 6 years after I initially started playing, because I started playing around the time of Christmas 2003. That's when I got my PS2 and I started getting set up. Yeah. These games were just something else entirely back in the day. A lot of memorable bits from them really stick with me, like the Yeti boxing, some of the boss fights, the worlds, of course, even the characters. I even remember when using my family's home camera to act out some of these games. Yeah. And then later on came the Legend of Spyro trilogy, which was also pretty memorable in my opinion. I really enjoyed playing those games, especially the first and third one, which were A New Beginning and Dawn of the Dragon. Eternal Night was pretty good, but yeah, the other games were much better, to be honest. And after we got robbed in 2011, I was pretty sure I'd never really see Spyro again until I saw Skylanders. I thought that would be a good chance to get back into it, and I got into that series probably a bit more than I should have. And I realize now it wasn't probably the best thing to be into, especially since I was made fun of and scorned for my little interest in it by my parents and people at school. Yeah, those were not good times, I assure you. But yeah, OG Spyro will always be #1 in my book. Whether he's just a dragon in general, video game, and yeah, those were the good old days. Yeah, I think the third one is probably, I have extremely good memories of the third one, because that's the one I probably played the most, but like I said before, I prefer the second one, Ripto's Rage. It's just memorable, and everything about it is just perfection to me. And yeah, that's all I have to say on Spyro.
Whoa! Give me a break, Kyrie.
Sorry, you lazy bum. I knew that I'd find you snoozing down here.
Kingdom Hearts is also another major gem in my childhood. I don't know what it is about random characters I've never seen before colliding with Disney, but somehow it just seems to snap together in my head. I've pretty much played every single game over the years, and well, it's gotten rather complicated, but I've enjoyed playing them nonetheless. My greatest memories come from the very first couple of games, which I played in the early 2000s when they first came out, and I didn't really go outside the first two games until like 2013. That's when I started playing them all, just to, get caught up on the story and everything that's been occurring, because with each entry, the story got more complex and convoluted at some points. Some bits of it were better than others, and it probably could have stopped at, like, maybe the first 4, but hey, I've enjoyed them nonetheless. My favorite one would probably be, well, I mean, there are a couple good ones that I can think of, such as Kingdom Hearts 2 and 358 Days, but it just, yeah, to be honest, I like them all. I think my greatest memories come from the very first one that I played. I saw my cousin playing it. It was like one of the first games I played. My cousin's pretty much the whole reason I got into video games, and this was one of the first ones I caught him playing, and I was hoping to one day find it again so I could try it out myself, and I only saw him get past Traverse Town, like, in the first game, so I really had no idea where to go after that until I found his strategy guide. Yeah, and I was really looking forward to Kingdom Hearts 3 when it was announced back in 2013. I was just looking forward to finally finishing this epic story. Ah, House of the Dead. One of the very first arcade games I ever played. I don't know how it could have appealed to me at such a young age. I mean, I was like 7 at the time when I first discovered it, and I probably shouldn't have been playing something like this at my age at the time. But hey, it was still really fun. I don't know why, it just looked so cool watching zombies just turn into nothing but shattered flesh and bone. And some of the bosses from it were pretty memorable to me as well, especially the very last one. I didn't really discover the full franchise until like 2014 when I found House of the Dead 4 at Dave & Buster's. Yeah, I remember fighting Type 0053 Justice and it kicking my butt literally several times. And then I went back and fully reviewed the whole franchise from House of the Dead 1 up to Overkill. I played games 1, 3, and 4. I never touched 2 or Overkill, sadly, but I still wish I did because they look really awesome. And I think, and outside of the combat, of course, like especially in Overkill, like the dialogue between the characters and the story, it was just hilarious. Really memorable to me. And in any regard, it doesn't disappoint. Ace Combat 4. This game was actually meant to be for my dad, if I'm not mistaken, but he never touched it, and I ended up doing so, and I really got into it. I just, to be honest, I thought it was like a plain racing game according to my mom at first, but it turned out to be so much more. It turned out to be a whole full-on war flight game, and I just really enjoyed it. I just enjoyed flying and dogfighting. It was just, that game was everything. This game was everything to me. Yeah, I think the most memorable bit for me would be the very last mission, Megalith. It's like realistic Star Wars. Like, you just take out the enemy fighters and then you fly into the missile base and blow it up from the inside. I don't know. It just really appealed to me, and of course, I remember the other missions as well a little bit, but there's not much I could really say about them compared to this one. It's probably because of the epic music and the dramatic setting of it all. Yeah. It was just really fun for me to play. I think I was able to finally beat it before I moved away from my dad and everything. And then I didn't touch it again until like 2011, and then I beat it again. It was like one of the very last PS2 games I played before we got robbed. Yeah, I lost about just everything back in September of 2011. I just wish... I still wish I had my PS2. There's still some games I realize now that I've actually missed out on that I wish I could have played. Yeah. I was born at the wrong time. If I was born a little earlier, I probably would have gotten into the earlier generations. There is so much I've missed. Right here is the bit I'm talking about. Like, this right here is the Megalith. It's a missile base that's designed to shoot down asteroids, and I think it was going to be used for more ulterior motives for purposes, but I can't really remember. All I know is that it was the final mission. By destroying it, it ended the war that was taking place in this game. Like I said, it's pretty much realistic Star Wars. I don't even know. It was really tricky because you had to be like inside the base itself to take it out. And of course, planes aren't really meant for narrow spaces. It takes being one heck of a pilot. Yeah. I did also play like one other Ace Combat game, which was Assault Horizon, and I realized there have been others. I really wish I got to understand the series a bit more, but to be honest, this game was just everything, and it's probably the best one out of the whole franchise for me, in my opinion. I really miss it. And yeah, there's just a lot of things from my early days I miss. This is definitely one of them. And I think one of the most memorable bits for me was definitely like the epic music that was playing during it. Especially the dramatic setup, it really gave me chills. Yeah, I think that's just about everything I have to say on this game. It was definitely a staple in my early childhood, along with all of these previous entries. But looking back, I think all of the major stuff that I've been into over the years definitely comes from the later decade or previous decade of the 2010s, to be honest. I find Endless Ocean. Probably one of the most memorable games I ever played with my family. It was one of my first games that I got on the Wii when I got it for my 10th birthday, and I remember playing it a lot with my mom. We really had some fun with this game, to be honest, or franchise, since they made a sequel, like, in 2010, or whenever it came out, and it was like, shortly right after I discovered the first game. Just remember diving across the various oceans and encountering sea creatures I only ever hoped to encounter in real life. To be honest, I got into this game when I was doing a science project for 4th grade on whales, and next thing I know, I end up running across this game and wanting to play it just because of the whales. They're probably my favorite sea creatures, to be honest. Just hope one day I could actually see them in real life. Yeah, I had some really great memories from this one. And yeah, a lot of them involve whales, I kid you not. So yeah, that's everything I have to say on this one.
So what shall it be?
Fallout, I discovered thanks to my Uncle John, who had the third game on his PS3. I remember coming out into the living room and seeing him play it every now and then, and running across his various adventures that he was doing, and I never really got the chance to play it myself until, like, my 14th birthday. And it took me a little bit to actually get into it and have it grow on me, the way it did everyone else. So, yeah, I started out playing the third game, and the more I progressed with it, the more I wanted to try and do. I got the Game of the Year edition with all the DLCs, and yeah, I really had some fun with that. I think the DLCs from that game and New Vegas were probably the most memorable bits for me, especially the ones such as Mothership Zeta, The Pit, Point Lookout, Broken Steel, and pretty much every single expansion from New Vegas: Dead Money, Honest Hearts, Old World Blues, Lonesome Road. Yeah. And yeah, once I get into a game and discover it's a franchise, I just do my research and discover everything else. So yeah, that's when I discovered the first couple of games and their stories and characters and adventures. And I heard, I guess about the time, a few months after I started playing this, that the fourth one was coming out. I had no idea when and how, but yeah, I was really stunned to know that the fourth one was coming out, like, in 2015, just not too far off when I was actually into it. I think the most memorable bits, aside from the DLC, are definitely the characters and probably the mutants. Yeah. Radiation isn't the only source for them. There are mutagens, there's, I guess, toxic clouds, stuff. Even genetic splicing experiments. But it had some pretty interesting characters who weren't human, some who were, and I just loved every single one of them. And I actually enjoyed Fallout 4 when I was playing it initially. Yeah, but I think probably the most memorable bits were, yeah, the things I enjoyed from it most were the monsters and the weapons and the characters, and I guess I'm just saying I enjoyed everything regardless. It just depended, though there were some bits I enjoyed more than others, of course.
Hey.
Yeah. I won't say 4 is the best game, but I still found it to be pretty good nonetheless. I mean, these kinds of games on consoles are going to have their issues, especially technical. I remember when I was getting into it more, I started having glitches and bugs in Fallout 3. I thought something was wrong with my system or my game, and I went to talk to the GameStop people saying that's just natural with these games and it's just something I'm going to have to deal with. And I decided to stick through it through thick and thin. Yeah. Some were worse than others. And yeah, I heard that the Pit had some of the worst ones, but I really didn't run into all that much except some lag. That was just about it. But yeah. I think my favorite game out of all of them would be New Vegas. It just had everything I enjoyed overall. In the main game and the DLC, story, characters, monsters, factions, mutants. Yeah, and that's all I have to say on this franchise. Okay, you probably weren't expecting this one, but hey, what kind of gamer doesn't love Minecraft? It actually took me a little bit to get into, as well as a couple of these others, to be honest. But yeah, I don't know, it just, probably the whole visual design of it didn't really appeal to me too much at first, but after I saw so many others playing this, I had to give it a try for myself, and I just, like everything else, I just dove in. Really enjoyed it. I played it first initially in early 2014, and it took quite a lot of time and effort to complete, especially in survival mode. You know, trying to do the main goal of getting to the end dimension and finding the Ender Dragon. At least that's what I think the end goal of it is. But yeah, I enjoyed being able to do everything else, like travel to other dimensions like the Nether, build what you want, fight what you want, craft, make whatever you want, check out things that you haven't even built, like villages or woodland mansions, strongholds, temples. Yeah, it's like, for some reason I found those bits to be the most appealing to me. And yeah, and with every update that came, I was just looking forward to more, especially since I saw that the PC was ahead of its time and had a lot more content, and it took some time to actually catch up with console. Yeah, and it got into it even more with Minecraft Story Mode.
I know your face. You're the one I've seen on the posters.
Oh no, you've seen through my elaborate disguise. Yes, I'm the savior, here to steal the soul from your precious patron. What are you waiting for? Arrest me and you'll probably get a raise.
Shut up! I don't need you to tell me how to do my job, you damn criminal!
Lightning Returns Final Fantasy XIII was the very first FF game I ever played. It wasn't really traditional Final Fantasy, but I still liked it nonetheless. Well, to be honest, I didn't even know what traditional Final Fantasy was at the time. Just, all I remember how much they hyped her up when this game was coming out in early 2014. Just saw the posters, the trailers. I had to try and check it out for myself, especially since it was featured in one of my Game Informers. I don't know how or why, but it just really grew on me. The combat was really fun and interesting. Probably not my favorite, though. But I really did enjoy the story at the time, and I think, yeah, definitely the combat was the most memorable bit for me. Probably because I was doing a lot of it. Though there were things I didn't like about it, such as the timer on the whole game. Like, you had a certain amount of time to play it before it was game over, and you had to start your whole story over just to try and beat it again. You had, like, a certain amount of days, and you had to make it to the 13th day in order to complete the game. Just really took a lot of time and effort. You had to at least complete all the main missions, and I was lucky enough to do so, because I think at the time I wasn't strong enough to keep up too much. But I was luckily able to get to the ultimate lair on my first playthrough. Sadly, I did not beat the secret boss, but I got rid of a lot of the monsters, which made it easier for me to come back and complete it. But yeah, I really enjoyed the characters. Lightning herself, Snow, Noel, her sister Sarah, Caius. Yeah. And that's when I started trying to check out the other Final Fantasy XIII games. Sadly, they weren't as... I mean, it's a shame that this whole segment of Final Fantasy was not really the best of the whole franchise, but this was definitely a cult classic for me. Yeah, and maybe the story isn't the best, but I did find it interesting, and it really did appeal to me, regardless. And what can I say? I really just love Lightning.
That's more like the old Mog. Don't give up. Things are going to get better.
I never really thought I'd find myself getting into horror, but that all changed when I first played Dead Space. Well, to be honest, I wasn't entirely sure this was a horror game at first. I never even realized that was a full-on genre too much. I know there was some games with some spooky stuff like House of the Dead, but I never really knew of such games like this. And like Minecraft and Lightning, this was a huge major gem for me in 2014 when I first discovered it. I played all 3 games. I beat each one in a week, maybe less. I think the memorable bits of it for me were definitely the monsters, the necromorphs. And of course, Dead Space 2 had some memorable scares as well, being stalked by your evil dead girlfriend. Yeah, just fighting the monsters and their designs. The design of the monsters and the way you fight them, it was hugely entertaining for me. Especially what they could do to you, like, the death scenes, it really just made my skin crawl, as well as my friends whom I showed this to. I remember, yeah, definitely games 1 and 2 were definitely the best for me. 1 will always be the best, 2 will always have some... 2's just as good, 3, it took some getting used to, especially with its interesting combat system and its grittier design and more oriented, action-focused gameplay. If it hadn't been for this, I never would have gotten into games like Resident Evil or Until Dawn or The Evil Within. Or Alien Isolation, but I'm not going to include that one officially just because it's kind of based off of something else, and I wanted to focus the main content of this video on stuff that was original. The Last of Us. Probably the best game of our whole generation right now. I pray that that's never gonna change, though, given recent events that might actually happen. But let's talk about the first game, which is definitely the best right now. It's definitely the best of the 2010s decade. It's focused on a post-apocalyptic world, and it focuses on the bond of these two characters, Joel and Ellie, which is... the relationship is just legendary throughout the gaming universe.
You ever stay at a place like this? Before? But I like to shit on you.
No, this is too rich for my blood.
And of course, there's the combat, which is brutal and realistic and extremely entertaining. But
This here is not a bad read.
yeah, the story of these two is definitely the most memorable aspect of it all. The relationship they have
Let's make you all nostalgic.
and what they go through together as they try to survive. To be honest, I don't really believe it that this game needs a sequel,
Well,
and
better than nothing.
it's just perfect as is. It has kind of an all-star cast for me with Troy Baker and Ashley Johnson, who plays as these two. And everything about it is just legendary. You'd have to play it for yourself to know what I'm talking about. Actually, maybe not, because I watched this whole game initially, and it was the first game I ever got on my PS4. It came with it as a digital download, and yeah, when I was watching it before I got it, I just instantly fell in love with it. Maybe because I was just looking for more survival horror games to play, probably. It's kind of why I got into it initially. Mortal Kombat. First fighting game I ever played, and it's thanks to my relatives that I actually did. My uncle owned Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe, and then my cousin had a huge birthday party at our house. He brought all of his friends over, and we had a huge tournament with that game. I kicked everyone's butt as Sub-Zero. Yeah, it's thanks to them I actually had some interest in this game, and then when I heard that X was coming out and I saw all these people watching it and playing it, I just got really interested by the brutal aspect of it all. Brutalities, the fatalities, just really appealed to me, and of course, the characters did as well. When I started playing MKX for the very first time, it's a shame there were those I couldn't really play as, like Rain and Baraka and Sindel. Those were definitely characters I wanted to play as in that game. Unfortunately, I got my wish in MK11 when it came out. Well, for most of them at least. As well as some of the other characters I wanted to play as that were in MK9, and which was a previous gen game and was on PS Now. I actually did play MK9 on PS Now, but yeah, I didn't really have much time to do so since my free trial was rather short. Really wish I could play it still, because that was definitely a lot of fun, and it's definitely the best Mortal Kombat game, to be honest. And MK11 does its best to try and keep up and manage, just stay up there with the other games, but it's just so grindy, to be honest. I mean, you have so much to do, and it's not traditional. It doesn't really have the traditional gameplay aspect of the other Mortal Kombat games. Like, the towers are a lot more complex and complicated, and they're not necessarily, they kind of break tradition, and they're more along the lines of Injustice, which sadly weren't something that appealed to me all that much. Yeah, but the story of the current gen Mortal Kombat games is memorable to me, as well as the characters. I have quite a few favorites, and I think maybe one day I'll try and do a list on my favorite Mortal Kombat characters. Maybe I'll even rank the guest characters as well. But yeah, if it hadn't been for Mortal Kombat, I never really would have gotten into some of these other fighting games and some of the other stuff that it takes material from or borrows from. Shadow of the Colossus. A journey of a lifetime. One that I never fully understood until I played it hands-on myself. It was a game that I got with my free PS Now trial, and I've heard a lot about this game, but I never really knew what it was about till, like I said, I actually played it myself. Yeah. The whole journey of it is probably just memorable to me. I mean, just going around the land, fighting giant monsters, finding out how to take them down. It was just really awesome. Probably the best game of the 2000s. I really wish I got to play it back in its heyday. A lot of games, I feel that way about a lot. I feel that way about a lot of other games, to be honest. There were quite a few of these colossi that were memorable to me. Probably need to find another word other than memorable. Oh, I guess I'm not entirely sure there is one. There were those I liked, those that wanted to make me rip my hair out because of their difficulty. To be honest, I enjoyed almost every single one, especially when the remake of this game came out in 2018. I had a much easier time thanks to my previous experiences, and the way it was just built from the ground up. The 2018 remake is definitely the best one for me, in my opinion. And when I came back to this game back then, I just had one hell of a time. I first stumbled across God of War in the cover issue for God of War Ascension and my Game Informer back in 2013 when it was about to come out. I never really got into these games until like 2015, however, when I started watching people's top 10 lists involving the boss fights such as Kronos and the Hydra. And then I got my chance to play them myself in 2016 when I rented God of War 3 from Redbox, and then I got it officially in 2018 when the newest installment was coming out. Yeah, the God of War 2018. Yeah, the boss fights were definitely the most memorable bit for me. Yeah, especially Kronos and Zeus and Hades. I think God of War 3 was probably the most memorable for me out of all the games. It had the best story, the best combat, the best boss fights. It had pretty much everything in this game was perfection. And I'm not saying God of War 2018 was bad, it was just different and it didn't necessarily feel too much like traditional God of War. It was more like their version of The Last of Us, which was not necessarily a bad thing, it just... the actual game with the original idea, such as The Last of Us, did it better. But I still enjoyed Kratos and the bond he had with his son Atreus, and I enjoyed the adventure they had, them journeying throughout the Norse world to bury their mother or scatter her ashes where she wanted to be scattered, which was at the top of the tallest mountain in all of the realms. And they discover there's more in store for them as they do this. Like, they encounter the gods of the Norse world, they have things they need to do in order to... what am I trying to say? In order to keep order in the realms, in order to survive. Both of these games were rather memorable for me, plus they're the only ones I played. I still kind of wish I played the original ones, though, to be honest, but... yeah. These games are the whole reason why I'm into God of War in the first place. Doom was another franchise I never thought I'd find myself getting into, actually. I remember finding the 2016 reboot coming out through my Game Informer, and then I actually ended up having a dream about it, and... yeah, from there I just actually started trying to research it and learn more about it. I watched all the QuakeCon footage from the 2015, and it actually really grew on me. Though at the time that was at the point where everyone thought it was gonna suck, but it actually turned out to be one of the best games out of our whole generation. And then I got even more stoked when Doom Eternal was coming out. Took a little bit because there wasn't really much being shown from it at the time, but then when they got caught up this year and started marketing and advertising it a lot more, that's when I was just on full throttle. Earlier this year, I decided to go back and play all the Doom games just to, prepare for it. But even then, that's when I started getting into Doom initially. Like when 2016 reboot was coming out, I looked back at the previous games. I probably looked at Doom 3 the most because it had like a story behind it with some actual lore. Sadly, I never really looked at the full gameplay of the original two Doom games. I actually ended up discovering that my stepdad had Doom 2 hidden away in his office closet. Sadly, we don't have the systems for it anymore, but hey, I have it now, fully accessible on PS4. And even though it had some pretty cool content, that game was just pure hell to play at times. But for me, Doom Eternal will always be the best one. It takes a lot of getting used to, especially with its faster gameplay and the fact it makes you focus more on, trying to survive and do what you need to kill demons. Yeah. But 2016 will be the most memorable for me regardless, because it was like my very first Doom game, and I really had some of the best experiences one could ever have with that one. We'll leave it to YouTube recommendations that actually get me into the Souls series. Dark Souls 3 was actually my first Souls game that I ever played, because, like I said, YouTube was recommending the hell out of it to me with its boss fights. And I never really knew of its difficulty until I played it myself. I was in for quite a treat. It took a lot of rage, a lot of blood, sweat, precious tears to actually beat that game. Then I looked back on the rest of the franchise through Demon Souls, Dark Souls 2, and Bloodborne, and I had no idea what I was missing out on until I saw them myself. I've never played Demon Souls, and I really wish I had, because this game was just... That game, from the looks of it, is just epic, and I can understand why it got Game of the Year. Because its concept at the time was just revolutionary. Of course, the most memorable bits from any Souls game would be the boss fights, but there are also other bits such as the characters and the locale. Like, I enjoyed pillaging giant castles or dungeons or gothic cities or demonic underworlds, even quiet gardens. I never really played the OG Dark Souls till 2018 when its remaster was coming out. at the time, the only games I could ever play were Dark Souls 2 through Dark Souls 3, with Bloodborne in between, because they were the only ones on current-gen consoles. I really wish Demon Souls got that treatment as well, because it's the OG Souls game, and it's what sparked a whole bunch of other games like it in its genre. I mean, it's not the first game with such difficulty, because I learned that the hard way through Crash Bandicoot. I do not know why such a game would have such difficulty. It's the reason why I probably like Spyro more. But, yeah. There was also Sekiro, but it wasn't necessarily, you know, Souls. My favorite one, that's a tough call. I mean, Dark Souls 3 is I had a lot of memorable experiences with, as well as Bloodborne. To be honest, they're all very memorable to me, but Dark Souls 3 being the first one I played, and of course, Bloodborne being the best one out of the whole franchise, according to community. And then, even though Dark Souls 2 wasn't, you know, standard Dark Souls, I mean, it was really easy, and there was a lot of it that didn't really appeal to many players. I still enjoyed it regardless. I mean, probably because it was easy, I found it much more enjoyable, just because it was nice to actually have a break from all the hard bosses that I had to pit myself against in order to get the full Souls experience from the other games. But yeah, guys, Souls is very memorable to me. I started playing it in summer of 2016, not summer. Actually, yeah, it was summer of 2016, but it was like late summer of 2016, like after my 18th birthday. It was like one of my presents, and it was Dark Souls 3, and yeah, throughout my fall semester of my senior year in high school, I got more and more into the whole franchise. And like in this game, like many others, I told myself, why have I not played this sooner? This is incredible. So yeah, guys, that's pretty much all I have to say on the Soul series. And don't get me wrong, I love Sekiro as well, but it's nothing in regards to the OG franchise that has connected itself through its first 5 games.
Trish!
Dante. Dante.
Trish. Devils never cry. These tears... Tears are a gift only humans have.
I know I've probably said this before like 100 times in this video already, but there are a lot of games I wish I played when they originally came out. Devil May Cry is no exception. The story, the characters, the combat, everything about it is just perfect. And you know, to be honest, I think those aspects that I've listed multiple times as well are pretty much what I look for in a good game. I guess I'm just all about the action. But yeah, I really enjoyed the story of Dante and his connection with the other characters, how his story intertwines with them. Their story is just something remarkable. And of course, being able to kill demons in ultimately stylish ways is just something that is a huge staple for this series and for me. I think the most memorable bits are definitely the story and, yeah, like the Soul series, the boss fights. Of course, basic demon combat was also awesome as well.
Gonna say who you are? Or do I need to loosen your tongue with me knife?
I'm a witcher. Heard you wondering about my swords. Well, one's for monsters, the other for humans.
The Witcher 3 is just breathtaking, in my opinion. You play as Geralt, a witcher who is a magical monster exterminator, and in this game, The Wild Hunt, the third game, which was a Christmas gift given to me by my mom's friend, her husband at least,
Thanks.
is definitely the best out of the whole franchise. It's the only one I've played so far, but it's definitely the best, and definitely it's probably the only one right now worth playing in this time. So, Geralt's whole story here, he's off to find his adopted daughter, Ciri, who is on the run from a group of ethereal elves called the Dark... Not the Dark... What am I trying to say? They're called the Wild Hunt. He has a run-in with all sorts of different characters as he tries to find her. That's pretty much what the story's all about, as well as trying to protect her and save the world from them. But of course, the main core loop is, of course, fighting monsters, which is Geralt's job, his whole career. There's a wide variety from griffins to goblins to wraiths and demons. This game has it all. And of course, Geralt, being a monster exterminator, has certain ways to deal with them. He has potions, elixirs, everything a guy needs to take on monsters, as well as his own unique magic as well. Probably like one of my main assisting tools in defeating them. The monsters were definitely the most memorable bit for me. Like hunting them, the hunts themselves were really fun. You know, fighting different monsters. Yeah, the experiences that were unique. The unique experiences each one had. And of course, there were bits while we were trying to find Ciri where you actually got to play as her a little bit and see her own arsenal in action. She has her own unique magic. She's not a witcher, but she's born of a race of powerful elves, or at least comes from the bloodline of a race of powerful elves, and the magical powers she gets from them are just really awesome. But of course, being a witcher, it's not an easy life, because there are those who hate you because of, well, your whole background, because there are other witchers who aren't as honorable as Geralt or company. Geralt and company, his friends Vesemir, Lambert, Eskel, they're the best of the bunch, but Geralt's definitely the best one. But even when you're hunting monsters, you have your own... You don't always have to kill them. There are other ways to deal with them. Some of them are actually more sociable than others, and they might need your help as well. You can't really kill everyone. I mean, it's your choice. It's up to you. You have a good amount of choice in this game on whether or not you want to do something good or bad, but there's never really a ultimately good choice. It's just the lesser of two evils. If Minecraft and Endless Ocean had a baby, then that would be Subnautica. It's a more hostile, survival-based version of Endless Ocean. You're not just there to go on safari and see sea creatures and explore the world. You're on a hostile, aquatically based alien planet, and you need to try and find a way off of it. But as you do so, you realize there's a bigger picture. In order to do so, you have to cure a disease that's ravaging the planet, and, of course, deactivate the quarantine that's keeping you there. And of course, there are other locales. There are many diverse locales, such as Arctic ice caps or regular tropic warm-based saltwater oceans. And of course, the fauna there are something else entirely. From EMP-emitting crab squids to vicious leviathans, this game will eat you up and spit you out.
Name's
I have yet to actually
Marguerite
do a
Maida.
full series on this game. I do have it, and the only reason I played it was to get footage for one of my other lists that I've done in the past. And right now I'm having a very difficult time getting out of the safe shallows, just having trouble finding resources to actually, you know, continue onward to complete the game. So, yeah, but still I wanted to show it off nonetheless, because it is really awesome. Combat's actually limited. You're only limited to like a heated knife. Whatever other capabilities you have, such as torpedoes or mech suit claws.
Are you here?
And it actually has some other interesting characters, like whatever former survivors there are, or even its own intelligent alien life. But the locale and the biomes are definitely some of the most memorable areas to me. Before becoming a global phenomenon, Monster Hunter was just a Japanese cult classic with a select player base. But that player base expanded immensely when World and Iceborne came out. And while these are the only games I've played, I can't tell you how much I am into the franchise as a whole. Of course, the monsters themselves are the most memorable bit, probably because they're the huge core concept. They're the main core concept of the whole franchise. World is the very first game to ever actually have a full-on story, and while there's been, I guess, minuscule plots and lore in the other games, this is the one that developed the plot full throttle. But even so, the monster hunts and missions remain the largest part of it all. So the story of World and Iceborne is that you're investigating why elder dragons are migrating from one continent to the other. You're part of a research guild that investigates monsters or the ecology of the world that's around you, and of course, these elder dragons play a major role. They're walking natural disasters, but still they have their own ecology, and being part of a research guild, it's your job to find out what that ecology is all about. There are so many memorable monsters in this game for me, and with Iceborne, it pretty much gave me the full Monster Hunter experience we deserved, even though World was a whole new generation. But sadly, without all the previous other monsters from the other games, it just felt really bland. But Iceborne fixed that, and then some. And even then, it's still continuing onward. We still get more and more monsters and free title updates, and being able to play with people online and hunt together as a team, a whole community of monster hunters, it's just a really, really awesome experience, and one that will stick with me in my later days and years. There's just so many that I enjoy, so many I wish I could have experienced firsthand in the previous generations in the handheld titles, or even very first few generations. I think, yeah, Iceborne was definitely the most memorable experience for me in a Monster Hunter game of the current generation. Though there are still the other games like Generations Ultimate and 4U and 3U I wish I could have played, because those other games and this one are definitely the best ones, even though they were so foreign to us American folk. But this is the one that changed it all for me, and it's the one that got me into this franchise as a whole. Out of all of the 2D games that I have played in my lifetime, Hollow Knight is definitely the best one. It's a Souls-like game due to its difficulty, but it has a more Metroidvania take on the genre. I first played this game in late 2018 when Voidheart Edition released on the PS4. Ever since I discovered it earlier in the summer, I always wanted to try it out for myself, but it's always a PC exclusive only. And sadly I don't have a PC, I'm not necessarily a PC gamer, so I couldn't really try it out at the time. There was a lot about this game that really stood out to me when I first initially played it. The places you travel to, the people you meet, the enemies you fight, and then some with this version, including every single bit of content with the free expansions that released on the OG PC version. And there's more to come with a full-on sequel being developed called Silksong, featuring everyone's favorite warrior princess, Hornet. There's still quite a bit left for me to do with this game, such as defeat the Godmaster DLC and probably some of the other extras I haven't gotten around to, like defeating Grey Prince Zod all the way or the Trial of Fools in the Colosseum. But it could take a little bit of time due to how difficult this game can be. But hey, it's been proven in the past that no hurdle is too large for me to overcome. But it still takes quite a lot of effort regardless. I heard that there was a lot of competition between this game and Cuphead when they both released in the same year of 2017. And while Cuphead is the one that came out on top, this one will always be the better of the two games for me. I'm not saying that Cuphead is a bad game really, Hollow Knight's just the one that appeals to me more. And with that, the list of my top 20 games of all time has officially come to an end. But even so, there are still others from the past I wish I've played that I haven't yet. Especially from the earliest ages.
Now, I will show you why I am the most powerful practitioner of psychokinesis and telepathy in the world.
Well guys, I hope you all enjoyed. It really took a lot out of me in terms of both my voice and my mind. Couldn't really think on some of these on what to say exactly, which is why I kind of prefer to do scripted stuff or scripted dialogue. Yeah, I hope things in the end finally get better towards the end of the year in this age of disconnect we're in right now. And like I said, things are finally starting to look up again, so hopefully I'll be able to try out all the other new titles that I've released thus far and what we'll be releasing later, like Final Fantasy VII and Resident Evil 3, Ghost of Tsushima, Cyberpunk, and whatever else there might be releasing this year. I hope y'all enjoyed. So, just so y'all know, everything but the songs I used, and, well, most of the songs I used, aside from the intro and probably outro song, as well as the Lightning Returns, Endless Ocean, Ace Combat, House of the Dead, some of the Fallout clips, and Subnautica. Oh, and the Dead Space stuff. Can't forget the Dead Space clips either. Yeah. Everything that's listed is mine, no copyright intended. Sorry if I accidentally infringed upon y'all. There's just some things I wanted to list but couldn't because I don't necessarily have it, and we're kind of in an out, and some of those generations are outdated right now, so yeah. Plus I also had difficulties getting footage from some of the other stuff that I actually do have, so yeah. With that said and out of the way, I hope you guys all enjoyed, and I shall see you in the next one. Got plenty more awesome stuff planned for y'all, and I shall see y'all then. Peace.